call the meeting. Very good. So my name is Tanya Bodell. I'm the chair of the Alternative Energy Committee, and we are officially calling the meeting for the Alternative Energy Committee of the town of Cohasset at 7:40 p.m. This meeting has been duly posted with 48 hours of advance notice with the town and is an official meeting in accordance with the regulations that allow us to do this meeting under open meeting laws virtually. So we begin. The first point of order is introductions. We have new members. There are 2 additional members who are not attending right now, although they may join us, but most certainly we have new face in the form of Barbara Russell. Barbara, would you like to introduce yourself? And then we'll go around and introduce ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Barbara Russell, my husband and I moved to Cohasset in early 2022. And I have a investment banking boutique in Boston. We raise capital and invest in tech-enabled companies, some climate-focused. And I'm a professor at UMass in entrepreneurship at UMass Lowell. And I have a pretty deep passion about sustainability and have immersed myself in it. I was lucky enough to be part of a delegation to Denmark last year that the Commonwealth and the Bar Foundation sent us and 29 other delegates to see how Denmark went green so fast, which was illuminating. And I'm also involved in a lot of climate tech companies, pitch competitions, and Greentown Labs, et cetera. So I'm really happy and flattered that I'm part of your esteemed group. And I look forward to learning about what you're up to.
Barbara, I think you're going to increase the gene pool here. That's pretty awesome.
I was going to say, welcome to the rock stars.
Yeah.
I found her. I was the one.
No. You guys, I've been reading.
Everybody.
Devin's been trying to educate me, but she realizes that the curve is pretty steep. So.
Awesome.
Great. So with the rest of the members, Debbie, I've introduced myself already. Would you like to go, followed by Chris and Josh? And then when it's time for our guests to speak, we'll have those introductions.
Sure. I am basically the secretary of the group. I've been in for 3 years. Yeah, that's basically all I can say.
So I think I've been on the committee for almost a year. I've sort of lost track of time. And I recently retired as CEO of Rockland Trust. And am beginning to, after 20 years, and beginning to sort of think about sort of what that means. And this is an important part of my new sort of profile, I guess, or sort of portfolio of activities. And I'm on a steep learning curve. Despite being a mechanical engineer and having studied a lot of this stuff at Cornell, that was 40 years ago. I got a very steep learning curve that I'm on right now.
Yeah, and Barbara and I met on the way in, but I have a very steep learning curve as well. But I love this stuff. I think we all have an obligation to do what we can here. So happy to lend a hand here and try to, push forward just ideas in this town that help us get to, at least get to net zero, at some point. Let's get a plan. So that's what we talk about later.
Excellent. So I will also say administratively, I am trying to sort out some potential confusion about who the official members are versus an associate member. My understanding is that the select board did grant us an associate member position. And every time I try to figure out who is that associate member, and it might be you, Barbara, just because of the 3, you were the last one to get sworn in. But it doesn't matter for purposes of attendance, and it's an important role because in this case, for example, when we don't have a full board, you'd have the voting rights as the associate member stepping into the real member, not real member, but the full member position. So given the steep learning curve, we thought having an associate member position would be helpful to help people get up to speed so that we could continue to have ongoing support. Oh, Martha's in.
Okay, I'll work with Martha here.
Great. And I know Taylor, I think, has a hard stop at 8, so we want to hurry up and go through this. Hi, Martha.
Hi, I'm so sorry I had problems logging in. I don't know if you can see me.
We can see your name.
Perfect,
and we can
sorry.
hear you. Oh my gosh, everybody's coming in. Woohoo! Okay, so before our next meeting, I will sort out.
Yeah, I'm going to email Michelle now about it, and I already texted her about it.
Okay. All right. And so, Martha, could you you are one of our newest members. Could you give us an introduction? And then Steve.
Hey, everybody. Martha again, Jimmy, longtime Cohasset resident. I am a landscape designer with a finance background. Very interested in sustainability, alternative energy. I was one of the people that introduced the single-use plastic bag ban bylaw change in 2018. And I'm looking forward to helping the committee in any way that I can.
Great. Thanks. And Steve, our oldest member? Not
Hi,
oldest, our
I'm
longest
Steve
member.
Winter. I guess I'm on audio but not video, which is good because I'm pretty much naked right at the moment. Went canoeing for the first time with a new canoe that my wife bought, and we got stuck in the mud at low tide, had to walk off. Anyways, it's a long story. So, anyways,
Careful with the controls, Jenny.
Enthusiastic member of Alternative Energy Committee, and we all do great work, and I'm so proud to help out wherever I can.
Great, thanks. And quickly, Doran Hole, if you could introduce yourself. I invited Doran to start participating with us. He's a new member of Cohasset, but Doran, if you could give some background on yourself as well, and then we'll move straight to Taylor, and we will defer until maybe the end, the meeting minutes, just because, again, I'm cognizant of our late start. Doran?
Great. Hi, Tanya. Thank you. Sorry, I'm apologizing because I just got off an airplane and I'm kind of moving through Logan right now. I'm Doran Hole. I'm Chief Financial Officer at Ameresco. It's a energy efficiency and renewables company. Some of you may be familiar with. I actually joined them about 4 years ago, but only really became kind of a permanent resident of Cohasset just about a year ago right now. So background in banking, and then worked in solar and now energy efficiency and renewables for several years. I'm really excited to get involved, and I'm glad that Tanya invited me. So thanks. Nice to meet you all. Hope that I can be on video for the next one.
Okay, no problem. Thank you for joining us. Okay, very good. So Taylor, I'm going to turn it over to you. And if you could introduce yourself and share with the committee what you're doing. I think members of the committee are already familiar with this initiative because over the summer in August, when we did not have a meeting, I was informing our members and asking for volunteers to be on a committee to assist you. So once you take it away, introduce yourself, tell us about your project, and then we'll ask some questions. And our hope is to get a committee to assist you as you move forward.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so my name is Taylor Clark. I am currently a master's candidate at the Harvard Extension School with a focus on sustainability. And I am volunteering my time to help push forward some initiatives for the Alternative Energy Committee. A little bit more about me. I currently am a health, safety, security, environment and quality manager for Neste US, which is a Finnish-based renewable diesel company. I have a bachelor's of science in chemical engineering from the University of Texas, and I'm an experienced professional background in operations, manufacturing, and environmental regulations as well. A little personal note, I'm a stepmom, a dog mom, a yoga instructor, a ranch owner, a gardener, and an animal lover. And I've worked with Tanya up until now on getting a project proposal for my master's completion. And what we've kind of decided is that I will provide the Alternative Energy Committee with a grant proposal and a comprehensive kind of project analysis on the solar microgrid for the low-income housing and potential future town hall. That will include installation, backup battery design, EV charging, microgrid switching management software, and interconnection to the national grid system. And with that, I am, like I mentioned, I'm doing this for my master's program, and so I will be relying on you all for a lot of guidance and information and data. So a couple of different things I could potentially need. Some design parameters for the microgrid, any previous studies, any previous estimate information. And I've gotten a lot of this from Jenny already. And then also, you know, contacts for solar panel and battery installation, estimating design and technical guidance. Information on the building or the proposed locations for the solar panel installation, the estimated electricity usage, and certain things like that. That is not a comprehensive list. There, of course, could be more. And then, like I said, this is for my master's thesis, more or less. And I'll be working now until the 10th of November, gathering information and developing this proposal. And November 10th is my big deadline to have a draft report completed and given at least to a few of you for review and feedback. And then I'll present the material November 20th, and then the final deliverable will be December 4th. So that will be a nice project analysis and proposal, and hopefully grant proposal as well, for the microgrid project for the city of or the town of Cohasset.
Awesome.
We're very excited.
Yeah.
Now, I know you've been working directly with Ginny, which is fabulous, and we wanted to have a subset of the committee plus Doran Hole, who's the CFO of Amoresco, who does a lot of this implementation. And so he volunteered to be able to assist as well. And I think, Josh, were you one of the folks who had volunteered?
Are you volunteering me?
Oh, no,
Yes, I can.
Chris, were you? I had put out a inquiry.
Yeah, I
about
was
who
I was one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Chris, myself, Dornhole, and I will have to look and see who the other one is. But Josh, if you don't remember that it's you, it might.
That doesn't mean I didn't say it. Yeah.
I know Steve and
It was
Deb
Steve, yeah.
and other things had stepped up. Ginny, do you have the email that I had sent about who would be on that committee?
Yeah, it was Steve. I know Steve was part of it. I can pull up the email, but
Steve Winter? I'm not sure. Well, pull up the email if you could, just so we know. But anyway, needless to say, Taylor, we have a subcommittee of this committee who is solely just ready to help. In order to make it official, I have to take a vote of our committee to support this project and agree to create a subcommittee. But I think it's a very exciting project. Does anybody have any questions for Taylor? Okay, and this is for those of you who may or may not know, the property she's talking about is the old Depot Court, which is at One Pleasant, and potentially extending a little bit beyond that. But the details have not been finalized. The purchase has not been finalized. Obviously, this would have to go to town meeting. And so Taylor's study and analysis could be part of the package for people to review. And it would be in a format that we could attach to a grant proposal for funding to help us fund excess capital associated with this part of the investment. And my understanding is that the building is already, it's not LEED certified, but it's pretty close, and it already uses heat pumps. Steve, you've raised your hand?
Oh, yeah, yes. I think last time I explained that I didn't think really that I should be on the subcommittee.
Yeah, that was my recollection as well.
Okay. Unless, you know, it sounds like you got plenty of help there for the subcommittee, so.
Yep. So for this committee, are there any questions about what the subcommittee would be charged with before I would ask for a motion to establish such a subcommittee?
Can I ask a fundamental question? Because I'm an alternate, whatever I am.
Alternative Energy Committee?
Alternative Energy Committee alternate. No, I know we're on AEC, but I don't know, and I really don't know. I'm happy to just be silent and learn as I go, but I really do not know what the subcommittees entail.
Okay, so the subcommittees entail whatever we want them to do. So we have a subcommittee who did a great job in bringing the community aggregation to Cohasset, and I applaud the key drivers of that, Steve and Debbie. We've had an exploratory committee that looks at whether or not we want to support a Go Electric program. We've had a subcommittee that's developed solar RFPs to move forward with potential solar projects in the town. So it's just basically we try to get 3 members of the committee plus anybody from the public who wants to participate that we think would be helpful to pursue specific initiatives. So everybody on this committee is championing something or has some sort of focus that they're aiming to assist with. And the subcommittees help direct that and allow for an easier set of meetings without open meeting law postings, because as long as there's not a quorum, people can meet more easily. And that's why we try to keep them at 3 or below.
And that what constitutes a quorum?
4 members of the committee.
Thank you. Okay, helpful. Thanks a lot.
And it ties to the open meeting laws. So by having 3 or less plus interested members of the community, they can be a little bit more nimble, and then they report back to our committee, our main committee, which meets once a month, unless there's a special meeting needed. Debbie.
So I wasn't clear, Taylor, when you were describing the actual, you know, parameters of the actual physical buildings that are included. Did you say a future town hall? Or I that's what I thought I heard.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that, because there have been a lot of meetings, often behind closed doors, tied to negotiation, that have been eyeing the property that was developed at the old Depot Court. And it has 14 residences, which could be used for affordable housing. And underneath, the town has been considering whether or not they could use the first floor part of the building as the to house the administrative part of town hall. So potentially they would knock off the 1985 problematic appendage of the current town hall, keep the historical building as a social cultural icon that can be used for multi-use purposes, upgrade that with a separate set of funds, and use this new building for the administrative function of town hall. There is also, as part of that, potentially, if they can make space, they might use the parking lot for the school bus depot and dedicate one of the rooms, which would have one of the apartments, to the bus drivers, because it would have a bathroom, it would have like a little kitchen, and it would have a meeting space for the bus drivers. So they could park their cars there, they could take the buses out, park the buses there. There could be charging for the buses there. So that is a whole different thing. As you can see, it is a multi-discipline, multi-committee effort that includes affordable housing, the town, and the schools, which means there's a lot of discussion and not a lot of action right now. But And now it includes us, the Alternative Energy Committee. So
Can I
take-
ask one?
analyze that and look at what the potential opportunities would be.
One other question, who's driving the bus on this? Who is,
So I think the Affordable Housing Trust is most interested in this because it would give us 13 or 14 low-income units. And it would help fund the entire purchase. And I think Town Hall is interested in it, either as an augmentation or potential replacement of I'm sorry, the town is interested in this either as an augmentation of the Town Hall administrative function space, or as a replacement. And I don't think they quite know yet which way that would go. And I don't think the schools have looked at this, but because the school bus parking issue has been an issue for a while, Michelle is eyeing it as a potential solution for the bus parking if there's not another solution that comes up in the meantime.
can I ask one other sort of off the record thing? Is the developer stopping
record.
building it? I
Hold on,
mean,
it's on the record. So just recognize we're being recorded.
yeah, well, I mean, is the developer stopping? Yes, I know that, but is the developer stopping the construction? Because obviously the specs will be totally different. You're talking about the building that's under construction right now, right?
The building is under construction and I don't think the specs would be totally different.
Okay,
It's right now, the building itself right now has, I don't think that the inside is fully built out. So I think right now it has enough that it could be sold, but obviously anybody coming into that space would customize it in some way or another.
yeah, okay.
Okay. All right. So what Taylor would do is assume that this building is going forward, would look at that and identify how it could become greener and sustainable. And like I said, it already is built to certain specifications. I don't know which stretch code it complies with, but it also, my understanding is it does have heat pumps already. And so Taylor would be looking at, can we put on top of that roof solar panels? Can we connect it with a battery for backup for our most vulnerable members who are in the affordable housing? Can we install electric chargers? If so, how many? And then we may or may not include the school bus as part of that, depending on what the space looks like. And it would include cost estimates, estimated savings, take into account the subsidies. It would look at the alternatives of the town financing it versus having a developer install that aspect of it, and what that power price might look like if we do that. And basically provide a bunch of information that would be very helpful for anybody interested in taking on such a building and what we could do with it from an alternative energy point of view. Any other questions? All right, so given this, I would entertain a motion. Well, I guess, how do people feel? Do we think this is a good idea? Do we want to put forward a motion to establish the subcommittee to assist Taylor in support of this project?
Why don't I make that motion? We can have more discussion. I'd like to make a motion that this put together a subcommittee to support Taylor Clark's project.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Debbie. Is there any discussion? All right, so we have a motion and a second. We have to do a roll call vote because we're virtual. Why doesn't, I guess Chris and Debbie, why don't you start?
Aye.
You have to say your name and then say your vote.
Debbie Cook, aye.
Chris Adleyson, aye.
Josh
Steve
Staunton, aye.
Winter, aye.
Josh Staunton, aye.
Martha again, Jimmy, I.
Barbara, why don't we take your vote? Just again.
Barbara Russell, I.
And Tanya Bodell, aye. So great. We're going to establish a committee, and I think the committee right now is myself, Chris, Ginny, and I thought it was you, Josh, but maybe not. Oh, Doran is on it, and maybe that's it. Josh, I'll let you know if I thought you're on it. Well, I thought you're on it. Maybe
Yeah,
I'll let you know if you are or not. Are you interested in being on it, or did
I'm
you
actually
decline?
I'm a little maxed out right now.
Okay, then that's fine. So I think our committee will be myself, Chris, and Doran, and Ginny. Okay, great. Taylor,
Awesome.
thank you so much. Taylor,
Yeah.
we should probably, given the time frame, think about how often you'd like to meet with us. Is this like every week we have a standing meeting? Is it every other week? Is it once a month? Do we wait until you have something to present? Let us know.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna
Thank
duck out.
you.
Thank y'all so much.
All right, bye.
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 Thanks, Taylor.
Thank y'all.
Fuck.
Okay, Tom Callahan. Tom, do you want to introduce yourself? And I know you've been here with us before, but can you then also give an overview of what we're going to discuss and timing and all of that?
All right, thank you for having me. Tom Callahan. I'm here tonight as chair of the zoning bylaw committee, but also chair of the planning board. And for those of you who don't know me, been in this town since the 80s, been in and out of town government since 1989. And what we are here, the zoning bylaw committee is a successor to the previous zoning bylaw working group. We are charged with reforming the Cohasset bylaw pretty much comprehensively for the first time in 30 plus years, way overdue. This town meeting, we will be coming with step 2 in our edits, and we are dealing with Article 4, which is a very important core provision about the uses, and then Article 5, which is our dimensional regulation. Most of the changes to Article 5 are just housekeeping at this point, because of the changes that Article 4 generates in terminology and everything. But, the focus on Article 4 is the article needed to be rewritten. It was it had a laundry list of uses, some of which are irrelevant. It was a mess. We have uses spread all over the bylaw due to the way things have been added. And so we're trying to make it a cleaner and neater provision and much more workable. With respect to your work, the Attorney General requires now that within a town's use regulations, we deal with solar energy, particularly individual house-based solar energy. And under our current bylaw, Article 20, we do not deal with it at all. We have allowed solar panels on houses, but we actually have no bylaw authority for them to exist. So with respect to your committee, this is the main thing that it's doing. So I circulated in Article 4, probably a draft of August 31st. It's been sort of revised. It's been turned into a warrant article format, but nothing in the revisions we've done in the last 2 weeks affects solar energy or renewable energy. So one of the things that Article 4 is doing that's new and different is we are segregating primary uses and accessory uses. Right now, they're not segregated. They're all part of the laundry list of uses. You don't know what's what. So we're making a segregation of those. And at the very end of the section that deals with our primary uses, we mention ground-mounted solar energy facilities, see Article 20, wind energy conversion facilities, see Article 19. So the things that are currently permitted in town under Articles 19 and 20 remain. They are mentioned here, but those 2 articles, 19 and 20 are still the primary source of regulation. Those are for the large scale wind facilities and the large scale solar facilities. As we've discussed with Tanya before, any changes coming to 19 and 20 would be dealt with this spring in the next town meeting. And KP Law, our town council, has amongst their staff a former chief judge of the land court, Judge Judith Cutler. She's been a big help. She started this process by writing out a diagnostic of our entire bylaw, and she included some comments about Articles 19 and 20. I have shared those with at least Tanya, that I hope's been distributed. And I had some of my own ideas on 19 and 20, and between now, well, after this town meeting on November 13th, and I would say February, it's probably the end of February when we have to be ready for spring town meeting. We'll further discuss whatever changes we'd like to make to 19 and 20.
And
19
just to confirm, 19 is
19 is the wind facility, and 20 is the solar. So, my big idea for the wind thing, by the way, is to allow for smaller scale turbines at an individual building scale. In 20, I also said about the individual solar panels and legalizing those formally, but that now has to be in here in Article 4. That's where it is. So when you look at the chart at Article 4, the table of uses, it's much, much shorter than what we have. And when you get to the very end of it, it'll say renewable energy, and it will say no, 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 except special permit of the planning board and the technology business district. So that again is dealing with primary uses. The large scale facilities are primary uses. And right now we only allow those in a certain overlay district. And again, whether we change that, we'll be dealing with in the spring. So that's why that says no. But then after the table, we'll come to section 4.3. And that's
do you have, Tom, can we share that for people to see?
I'm afraid you're gonna ask that. Let me see what I can find quickly. We have so many versions that have flown around. Let me see if I can find the last version.
So to summarize, in
Well,
section 4, there's a necessary administrative acknowledgement of renewables.
yeah, I don't want to get into the technicalities with you about what we're doing to Article 4 as a whole, but we're taking a different philosophy to clean it up, reorganize it in a more makes sense way, consolidating some uses that are found elsewhere in the bylaw under separate articles and bringing those into Article 4. But the most important thing for solar is that we have to bring in individual allowance of individual solar panels as of right into our table, into our use article. And that's, the Attorney General is prone to throwing everything out if we don't do that. So we are doing that. Let me share the screen here. I think I have it. So this may be different than what got distributed. This is the current version in its article form, or article form. I'll be able to move it around. So if you look in the principal uses, the last, there it is. The last principal uses are the renewable energy, and these are talking about as principal uses, the large scale facilities. So there can be a property that is solely a large scale solar or wind facility. And Article 19 and 20, as I said, will still govern those. And whether we reform Article 19 and 20 in any way will happen in the spring. And then again, when you go down to the table, last thing on the table is the renewable energy uses. And again, following what 19 and 20 allow today, where these facilities are only allowed on certain properties, it's not allowed except by special permit in the technology business district. Since we may do some consolidating of districts. We may suggest getting rid of the overlay for these types of facilities. Again, those will all be dealt with in the spring. Okay, and then when you
And
go
that's a
down,
primary use.
that is a primary use in the large scale facility.
Okay.
So now when we get, here's the accessory uses. So now we're seeing, you're now in this art for talking about accessory uses separate from and distinguishing them from primary uses. So there'll be no more confusion about that. And as we get down the list of the various accessory uses, we come to this. List number 10, subsection 10 is what the Attorney General requires. Okay. To allow as of right small scale solar energy systems in all districts, residential and non-residential. So with respect to, for example, 1 Pleasant Street, that is a permitted building. The planning board permitted that 2 years ago. The original developer sold it to the current developer. The town takes it subject to that permit. And with this being passed, the town will be able to add solar panels to the roof as of right and not have to amend the permit to do that. So there is what we say there. So now we are not only talking about roof mounted, but ground mounted for an individual use. And Tanya will recall that at our last meeting, I gave an example. I drive by it every day to get to work. There is a property on River Street in Norwell that has a very, very large side yard, and they have a standalone ground-mounted solar panel array. Those are permitted. If you have the room for it, they would be permitted, but they would not exceed 12 feet in height. Now, one of the things we are doing in Article 4 that doesn't exist is we're setting a height limit for accessory structures. We do not have a height limit for accessory structures in our current bylaw. Things like garages, sheds, etc. So we set that limit at 25 feet, but rather than have a 25 feet of solar panel, we are recommending a height limit for solar panels of 12 feet. And I think that's fairly consistent with what I see on River Street, which is the only example of it I know in a residential setting around here.
The fence, you put a fence around, there's an 8-foot fence limit, right? But you can have a 12-foot solar.
I think it's a 6-foot fence limit, but yes.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and of course the reason for that is to encourage the development of them, which is exactly what the Attorney General wants us to do. They want us to encourage the use of solar, installation of solar facilities. The roof-mounted one, I'll ask for your input because the zoning board brought this up the other night about this, an angle no greater than 10 degrees, and one of the members of the zoning board said, well, roofs are at 30-degree pitch, you know, what does this mean? And we have to clarify this amongst ourselves, but the idea here was really not to have roof-mounted systems would not be subject to the overall 35 foot of a house, but we just also don't want them sticking straight up, way up in the sky. And so we might have to tweak that 10-degree pitch though, based on a comment we heard from.
So is that pitch, Tom, or is that relative to the roof? So if the roof.
Well, I think we just need, based on what the zoning board brought up the other night, I think we just have to clarify that. I think that's relative to the roof is the intent. So, you know, rather than, so you're not gonna, you know, you'll have a roof that maybe has a 30-degree pitch. You're just not gonna put something straight up off of that and then go up as high as you want. We're gonna say, put it at an angle, but not an angle that's gonna be, you know, showing up like a wall on the top of the roof, something basically. So we just have to clarify that point, but that's what we're proposing there. And then if it's of interest to you, I assume it is, we have a section now on.
So Tom, about that and these kind of things, I mean, I think rather than, you know, it's actually, I wrote with Dan Cotton the very first zoning bylaw.
Yeah,
which never had to think about these kind of things. But I mean, some of this stuff seems like it should be special permit instead of a blanket denial. I mean, depending on engineering and stuff.
It's not a denial. It's as of right.
No, it says at an angle greater than 10 degrees. I think something like that needs, rather than blanket it, blanket denial. I think some of these things, depending on engineering and the kind of situation, I don't think it should have be that restrictive.
Not intending to be restrictive. Hold on, I'm just make a note. The judge is trying to follow to the letter what the Attorney General is directing towns to do. But so in general respect, if you exceed a limit in a zoning bylaw, a dimensional limit like that, you'd have to get a variance. And the criteria for a variance is very strict, and our zoning board is not prone to giving out variances. So you're asking for an allowance to exceed these restrictions, these limits, with a special permit. So
I'm just saying a lot of these require engineering that may have, there may be workarounds, and I think that
I understand that. The objective is not to have, again, since the panels on a roof are not going to be subject to the 35-foot height limit overall for the house. We don't, the idea at the same time of allowing these things is not to have things that are obtrusive, overly obtrusive. Your point is taken. The bylaw committee is meeting again Monday, so we'll take that.
And you're going to clarify that this limit on installing at an angle no greater than 10 degrees is with respect to the underlying.
Yeah, we're going to have to do that. Yeah, we're going to have to do that because of what he guys. I think our intent was just in relation to the existing roof pitch. That's all.
Okay.
Again, so that you have something that's still angled, but not just standing up straight.
Right, and that
where it gets obtrusive, Yeah. And has no utility if it's standing straight up.
But I can think of a few cases, like for example, the flat roof in the back of my house where, obviously you want it angled in the right way. So if 10 degrees is probably not the right angle, it probably should be like 45, the way they are like the solar at the dump.
All right.
And it may not be visible. It may be the back of the house and it's not visible. That's why somehow there's got to be latitude, because it should be, different, I think, rather than making it that blanket of.
This is why we're talking with you. The theory that you're more expert than this than we are. So,
could I make a comment?
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead, Steve.
The angle that you want a solar array, rooftop solar array, to be at relative to the ground.
It's relative to the latitude. It's relative to the roof. It's relative to the roof. Not
wait, let me finish my comment. The engineering wise, the optimal angle that you want a solar array to be at depends on the latitude of your house. So in our area, there would be an optimum angle. We should find out what that angle is, and that angle is relative to the ground. Otherwise, you have to worry about, well, if you have a flat roof, 10 degrees isn't enough. But if you have a 45-degree roof, 10 degrees is more than enough. You probably wouldn't want to angle it at all. So it makes sense to have a requirement relative to the ground plane. But we should find out what the standard angle is in our area and for our latitude.
That's what I was hoping you would know, rather than the Judge Cutler on our committee. But,
well, is there
and perhaps the answer to this is that we put a maximum pitch on it, and then that allows for a whole range of options of how you pitch it depending on your particular location.
Well,
is there an optimal? Is there a model bylaw for this purpose? Does the Attorney General propose a bylaw? towns
it's
might
not-
adopt?
No, they tend not to do that. They tend to mandate without suggesting how to comply with their mandates. I mean, it's usually organizations like MAPC or some energy related company or interest group that would come up with model bylaws.
Well, I think maybe somebody ought to call some solar
Alright.
installers and ask them what angle that they use.
Well, I think we can do that. So that's, I think.
We
what
can do
Tom
that.
is
I mean,
asking us to
and
ask.
understand too, we're going to the planning board for its formal statutory hearing on the 27th. So we do want to wrap up as much as we can before the 27th. So I assume that we can find that information out fairly quickly.
Okay, so
But-
typically they're between 30 and 45 degrees, but as Steve said, the optimal setting depends on where you're located from a latitude perspective on the globe.
On a
So
roof,
we can
on a
make
roof,
some-
they're pitched to 30 or 45 degrees.
That's typically versus the ground is typically what the pitch is of solar
Well,
panels.
that's fine. But on the roof itself, such as at my neighbor's house, the panels are flat on its roof. The roof may be pitched at 30 degrees, and that's what we're talking about. This number was designed in relation to the roof, not to the ground. If the
I know,
roof is
but
30,
Right,
It doesn't make sense to have the requirement relative to the roof, because that makes it very confusing. Because then you have to have a different standard for a flat roof than for a roof that's pitched at 45 degrees. You know?
all right, that's fine. I understand what you're saying. I'm making notes about it. But, I have yet to see a solar panel on a roof that's raised off the roof. Not that they don't exist. I haven't seen
I'm sorry, that's raised on the roof? What do you?
raised off of it, that it's at an angle different than the roof surface itself.
Oh, yeah, that happens frequently. But
All right.
usually
Commercial.
people don't have them in the front of their house where people see them. They're usually on a roof, behind their house or whatever.
Yeah.
But that is, and that's why I'm saying, I think this has got to be carefully thought of, because this could be
All right.
very restrictive.
All right. Good.
So I think the key takeaways are that the limit should be with respect to the ground, not the roof. Just given that different roofs have different pitches and different parts of the roof have different pitches. For example, if it's one side of the roof versus the other, or if they're dormers. But if you do it versus the ground, that's the standard measurement. And I think that the other is we can give you some guidance by doing some research. In fact, Dorm can probably just figure that out.
And
I was going to say,
would-
so Tom thinks that the
I would,
SIA
let
solar.
me just say,
yeah.
I would welcome you to suggest the proper language for this, but you asked about timelines. The bylaw committee next meets Monday. That's our last meeting before we meet the planning board on the 27th. So essentially Monday is when we want some suggested language.
Okay, we can get that to you.
And Dora, my apologies. Go ahead. I'm curious.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just going to say that there are a couple of industry associations that are more national that might have some language, but I was going to suggest if anyone has contacts at other towns who have already adopted it and may have gone through the process, it may be worthwhile looking at what they put in to their bylaws.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm assuming the judge has done that because they're town council for a zillion towns in the state. But yes, if anybody knows of anything, we take information and suggestions from all corners. So. All right, and other than that, then in this article,
So
when you go,
can I
so
just
the,
ask, do we want to have an action item from our committee on that? And do we want to give somebody responsibility to follow up on that for you? And
Yes, we do.
okay.
But I wanted to find out what else we needed. I think we definitely have an action item for who I can take the lead on this, or if somebody else wants to take the lead on this, to put together standard language. But I think generally there's a feeling that it needs to be with respect to the ground, not the roof. And the question is, what's the angle for our latitude with some wiggle room? So I'm happy to take the lead on that unless
All
somebody
right,
else would like to join.
again, all I ask is if by Monday, please, if you can, because I'd like to have as final a product to bring before the planning board, because after that, dealing with changes that have to go back and forth to the planning board.
Yep, we
I
understand.
think the publication deadline for this, for the town meeting warrant, is probably early October, so.
So
Tom-
not to beat this dead horse, because I'd like to help with this, but the whole idea, this is an aesthetic issue. It's not, so I think we need to define this based on an aesthetic measurement rather than an arbitrary, you can only have it so many angle, you
I
know.
understand that, and that was an aesthetic measure. That was the judge's suggestion as an aesthetic measurement.
Right,
So
okay.
that we are
I
not
don't think
having,
it works.
not having obtrusive structures on tops of roofs, that's.
Right. So if we said, if we said that it was going to protrude so much, so far above the roof line, that would trigger a special permit or something. If you did it that way, instead of
Well-
trying to engineer how it, the angle, but protrusion above a roof line. I don't want to beat this horse, but it's very important.
No, and
because
and believe me, I don't want you to beat the horse. Because,
Debbie, why don't you join why don't you and I resolve this and then be ready to present or attend and provide our suggestions to the Monday meeting?
Okay, got, yep,
Good.
all right.
So put your name in that action item box as well.
done.
Perfect.
And then this Article 4 also generates some changes in definitions to Article 2, which is where all the definitions are, which we did some amendments last spring, and so we have to add a definition for accessory small-scale solar energy system, which we don't have again. So that is the definition that would be added with this as part of this stuff.
So Tom, were you asking for us to also have input on this definition? Is that,
No,
you said you don't have a definition?
no, we have a definition. Here it is.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I misunderstood.
Oh, I mean, it's just the measurement thing, because the zoning board brought it up the other night. That's really the input that we need. All right, Article,
Wait, Tom, one question
Yeah.
about this. What about hot water solar technology?
what about it?
What does that include? You don't have hot water here. You say heat and light, power, heat and light, not hot water.
I think heat would cover that.
I think that power and heat would cover that, but
Okay, all right.
This one, and Debbie, you and I can put this on our list as well to discuss, because what this one would do is prevent a town parking lot or a grocery store parking lot from being used for carports unless the power was being used by the store next to the parking lot. And it would also prevent the town definitionally by putting solar on the schools unless it is being used directly by the schools versus put into the power grid. So we talked about behind the meter and in front of the meter. The language as written would seem to require a special permit for anything that was going to be in front of the meter, sending electricity into the grid versus into a building.
Right.
you want the definition to include the grid for use in the grid?
So is
I'm
this,
gonna-
is
I'm
this
just
the
making- I'm making-
primary?
Could I ask for a
Making it-
clarification here? I mean, normally the way it works is if during the daylight hours, maybe you're generating more power than what that home can use. And so the power then goes to the grid, and through net metering, the meter runs backwards. And then in the evening, when there is no solar, then they take it off the grid, and that makes the meter then go forward. So I don't really understand this because the power can sometimes, the power always goes to the grid, and the house just draws their energy off the grid. It's just an accounting trick that enables people to keep track of how much of their power is being used over a short period of time versus a longer period of time at their home. And am I correct? It's a net metering thing. So
Okay, that's fine.
I don't quite understand. You can't say that the power is used only for the household,
Primarily though, Steve.
It's primarily going to be, we're talking again, we're not talking these large systems. This is the definition of a
This is
small.
the accessory one, not the primary.
Correct. And, but,
Okay.
I mean.
sorry to interject for just a second, but just following on the comment that was just made. Even for rooftop solar in a residential setting, the electrons are fungible. I believe that is interconnected to the grid. And I think that flexibility, or at least focusing a little bit on the definition enough to ensure that these electrons can kind of flow back and forth, is going to be important for the microgrid project or any microgrid, because you need that flexibility in terms of how to arrange the battery, right? So we just got to look at the definition.
It's a simple fix.
Yeah.
It's a simple fix. I made a note of it. It's a simple fix.
Great.
I have no problem with that fix. It makes sense. So, now, so that's Article 4. And again, I'll just remind you, the planning board's formal hearing is the 27th, and you're all welcome to come to that. Obviously, to put in any comments there, but I would expect these fixes to be made by Monday night. So,
Yep, we'll be at your meeting on Monday, Debbie and I. And Doran, if you have time, tomorrow or over the weekend, maybe we can have you be a part of that discussion as well.
Yep, absolutely. Happy to do so.
Yep. I think, and I agree, I think there are easy fixes, Tom. It's just,
yeah,
we're finding the problems, but I want to give you solutions.
No, that's why we came to you. So the definition is easily fixed.
And Tanya, just while we're thinking about it, I think the other element is maybe a quick research on the standard height for ground mounts so that we understand that 12 feet is appropriate as well.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking about, yeah.
The carports, I think, is your concern. Those are typically.
No, I was actually thinking about the single axis type of trackers that are sometimes put in there, where you actually just have a single pole coming up from the ground with a grid of modules, like maybe 6 modules mounted on it, 6 or 9. And I just don't know how tall those are on a standard installation. But nevertheless, if we structure the definition so that if something violates the 12 feet and it means you can go get a you need to go get a variance or a special permit, then that's okay. Not a variance, sorry, wrong word.
The way it's written, look, the way it's written, you would need a variance.
Right.
And you're not going to get a variance. As far, I thought we explained this at a zoning bylaw committee meeting a couple weeks ago. Carports are not the same as what we're thinking about when we're saying ground mounted accessory. The ground mounted accessory structure we're talking about is the thing that's on River Street. It is solely solar panels. A carport, a garage, is a accessory structure, which is subject to the 25-foot height limit. And you can put panels on the roof of that. That's different. Do not confuse a carport and a garage with what is intended here to be referred to when we're talking about a ground-mounted accessory unit. It is the thing on River Street in Norwell. It is solely an array of panels that is an independent structure sitting in somebody's yard. 12 feet was an arbitrary number I threw out because that's the number I thought, that's how tall I thought that thing was on River Street. I think anything beyond that starts to get obtrusive. And we are not here to just allow anything for the sake of the technology at this point. We also have to account for the other reasons we have zoning, which is to create a certain norm and look to the town. And so, again,
it's about aesthetics. Understood.
And it's a completely, we're not looking to make the accessory ground-mounted panels, something similar to the large-scale ground-mounted panels, which can be very tall.
I got a question here. I don't know if solar canopies are a thing for residential uses, but if they are, I've seen them proposed for residential uses, but whether they actually are or not, I don't know. But where would solar canopies fall here? They're not put on top of a carport. They're, a standalone structure with just solar panels, and cars can park under them. Like at the
to me that would be
MBTA depot in Hingham.
And to me, that would be an accessory structure like a carport or garage.
Okay.
That's how I would think about those.
Because it has a dual use as a parking
yeah
facility, as well as being something that happens to have panels on the top of it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I mean, that would be my interpretation as an attorney of that. All right, so then, I mean, if 12 feet should be 15 feet, I don't think there's any problem with that. We certainly didn't want to make these ground-mounted accessory things go up to the 25-foot limit. So, I mean, if you want to say, if Doran, you find that the standard for these ground-mounted things that I underestimated when I drive by every day, and they're 15 feet, that's fine.
Yeah, we'll take a look. I mean, I just I'm just getting back from the renewable energy trade show in Vegas, and they have like tons of these things on the trade show floor where new things are being considered, and I just kind of want to make sure that we don't get in the way of it. But at the same time, I can't imagine 15 is not enough, and 12 might be enough too for pretty standard ground mount fixed tilt.
Yeah, and the reality in this town is we probably don't have many properties that have the space for them.
No, that's right. Yeah. And as you said, even at 15, you may have a lot of people in town that don't want to look at that.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a consideration. In addition, what we've put here are regulations that the judge is fairly confident that the Attorney General would be in favor of. Especially since we're coming from nothing at this point, we have to have something. So that's pretty much it, because in Article 5, there is nothing in Article 5 in the dimensional table that refers to this. There may be a note about the 12-foot limit that'll be also carried over, but it's already set forth in Article 4 what the height limit is for these things. So that's pretty much it. Now, again, looking forward, if we, for the spring, would be looking at all of Article 19 and 20. And again, the diagnostic, which is our starting point from Judge Cutler, is something everybody should read, where she points out if there's, as simple as language problems, or if there are inconsistencies with what the state is working on. Those bylaws were written a long time ago. And then there's the fact that the large scale things are limited, very limited to certain properties. And that's something we may want to rethink. Again, not that there's that many properties where we could spread them to, but should we have it be so restrictive? As the world moves forward to go into renewable energies. Right now, they're very limited to what properties those things could be built on. And again, my idea was simply on the wind side of it, is to allow for individual small-scale turbines on buildings. So read what the judge said, look at my suggestions, come up with your own, but if we will do anything to 19 and 20, it would be in the spring.
Okay.
And it all may be reorganized too. I mean, we may combine 19 and 20 into one alternative energy or renewable energy article instead of having two separate ones. I mean, one of the other parts of the end result of all of this is to maybe consolidate. Right now, we have 22 articles in the bylaws. To consolidate that down to around 10. The other thing related to what you do is, I know I went to one meeting with a bunch of people in town hall about climate change initiatives, and we are going to be working on that. Those might be the last thing we do. I don't know if there's this interdisciplinary, interboard, interdepartment thing going on in town, that anything might be ready on that regard until fall town meeting next year. But that might be the last thing we do. But we're
So,
going to be
Tom-
working. We're hopefully going to have some new initiatives on climate change in the bylaw.
So Tom, I apologize. I didn't read, the bylaws that you sent over, but are you going to allow accessory wind turbines?
No, not in this go round. That will, if we are going to do that, that's an idea of mine for reforming Article 19. And we deal with that in the spring. The focus here, given what the judge understands her scope of work to be, which was to get our bylaw up to date and in full compliance with state law. And the AG's office is hot to trot on solar, not on wind. So they're not mandating we do anything about wind. But we can take those initiatives when we get to the spring. And we may, in fact, put an individual accessory wind use in this section of the bylaw. Who knows? But I think that would be a great direction to go to myself.
Okay, so we will look forward to exploring that in anticipation of the spring meeting. But if I don't know if it's, given the changes that have made, and I don't know what changes have been made, I can either work with the most recent version I have, or if you want to send me whatever the version is that's going to be distributed for discussion on Monday.
Yeah, I think what I'll send to you is what I'm looking at. It's on your screen. This is the version that has been converted into the actual warrant article, and it's the last one we've been dealing with. And hopefully by Monday, we're going to have this counterpart for Article 5.
Okay, and we'll be pithy. We'll identify our concerns, suggest a way to address those concerns, and hopefully.
Yeah, I'm gonna summarize what happened at the zoning board meeting, and as well as this meeting, because I'm not sure that I myself is going to be at Monday's meeting, but I'll make sure all these points are brought up, and feel free to, and then the judge will see them before Monday. And then, again, if you have any suggestions of language, please distribute it to me before Monday, and I'll make sure that the rest of the ZBC and the judge get it.
Okay, good. So I'd suggest Debbie and Doran will meet tomorrow by Zoom. After this, let's send some emails around to figure out a good time if you're available, and then we can just put together a quick memo for distribution. And Debbie and I and Doran, you can join us, but we would be in attendance at the Monday meeting to discuss our memo.
Sounds like a good plan.
Okay.
Yeah, and I will just caution you that your time will be probably relatively short, given the other things we have to cover for Monday, because we pretty much have to finalize the text of both articles in preparation for the planning board hearing the following week. It's our last meeting before that meeting. So.
Yep. Nope. We are happy to attend your meeting in a very.
Okay. I'll make sure you're first. I'll make sure you're first.
We would love that. Okay, even better.
Yeah, and so everybody knows it. You can find our agenda and the Zoom link on the bylaw committee has its own page on the town website, and we start the meetings at 6:30.
All right, very good.
Okay, great. Thanks for your time.
Okay, hey, thank you so much, Tom. We appreciate all your hard work on this and in involving us to help think through this.
Yeah, and I'm going to send this to you by email right now, the warrant article version, and I'll just circulate it to everybody else, because
Okay.
I don't have everybody's emails. So.
Good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye. Okay. Woo. any other thoughts on this, or can we move on to Ginny? All right, we've got a good action plan. And Doran, we're very happy that you're joining us because you probably have the most technical knowledge of all of us about these things. So this is
Well, I'm
very
not sure if it's technical knowledge, but I certainly have access to the information. So between now and when we get on the phone, Tanya, I'll try to pull some data on some of the information we just talked about to the extent I can tomorrow
okay.
In the afternoon. But that's great.
Perfect. All right. Ginny,
Hi.
hi. Do you want
So
to give us an update on what you've been working on? And I know you've had some action items in our minutes. Just give us an update on what the status of those are.
sure. And for the new members, I am the sustainability coordinator consultant. I'm a consultant for the town of Hingham and Cohasset. My role is to work with the Alternative Energy Committee and to help each community discover if they're going to be setting up full-time positions and help them create those positions within their communities. So from the minutes, some of the action items that were identified were for a climate action plan. So I had reported at the last meeting that we were hoping to find out if there would be funding for a climate action plan, either in a grant that I had recently applied for or for a future grant. So there was no funding. We were not funded for a climate action plan in MVP 1. We did receive MVP 2 funding, but we don't know if that end result will be a climate action plan after we go through a year of public meetings. And then the other grant that I was hoping would be a seed money for an action plan. I met with MAPC. This is Accelerating Climate Resiliency Grant, and they are not funding action plans as a result. So that would have been $50,000 seed money. But they were interested in a microgrid. And I don't know if we're at that point, if we want to wait till Taylor's project is done to really pursue that. The grant is due tomorrow. But it's not tomorrow at 5. It's not really a heavy lift. I think though we would have more information at the end of Taylor's, and this grant will be offered again in June, so we could apply for it again.
What's the funding?
It's $50,000. It's MAPC's Accelerating Climate Resiliency Grant. It's a 1-year grant. They fund only 10 projects throughout the Commonwealth, and they're asking for communities. They're putting communities up higher if they don't ask for the full 50,000. So you could you could ask for the 50,000 to help with a study for the microgrid or some other aspect of the microgrid. They have funded microgrid studies in the past for other communities. I bring it up just to one other thing is Montana did apply for a grant through them. She applied for a pollinator garden, and they did say that they would fund multiple grants in multiple communities. I mean, in the same community. I just don't know if that, given that they're only funding 10, would impact her. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
So just as background for everybody, we have received in the past $150,000 for 2 separate microgrid studies, one for the DPW station, one for the Harborview. As a result of the study of Harborview, we then were able to get $20,000 for backup batteries that they then decided they did not want, which then moved to the VFW hall. So we have, and now we have Taylor doing a study for us as part of her thesis for the new building. So I think it doesn't mean we don't want more study money, right? Especially I think for the schools, there could be some interesting things we could do there. but it sounds like there's no reason to rush on tomorrow.
Yeah.
And try to understand what they're awarding so that we can be more prepared for the next deadline.
The one other idea that I had while Tom was speaking is that they fund municipal climate resiliency policies, including regulations, zoning, permitting, and inspectional services. So if we needed more funds, if we wanted to have funds to investigate this further or to go deeper, MAPC does have a whole guide on climate planning and zoning that we could you know take some notes from that. But again, this is all happening tomorrow, and I don't know exactly what Tom's needs are and what the department's needs are in planning.
So how long have we known about this one? Did we decide Montana was going to move forward with the request for a grant?
Yeah, she decided to move forward with this community pollinator garden. And I was really hoping that we could fund a climate action plan, and that just ultimately didn't play out, that they would be funding that. So like I said, it's not a heavy lift for the application if we did want to try to do something, but I wanted to just make you aware of it. Otherwise, there are other opportunities, and we can wait.
Okay, so what do people think about this at this point? Any feedback for Ginny or thoughts?
Seems like it'll be a little rush to try to get something together for tomorrow by 5. So I don't see a big urgency to, especially with the microgrid.
Well, I'm not sure I mean, we really don't even have, I mean, we'll have a whole lot more to talk about when the work's done.
Right.
And I
mean,
feel like you can't go to the well too many times, so I think we have to be strategic.
That was my feeling on all of it. I just wanted to make you aware of it, that this grant opportunities exist. And I'm still looking for opportunities where we could fund a climate action plan. I just haven't found any out there that are funding that at this time. Can I move on to a green communities update? That was another action item.
Yep.
Okay, so I've been talking with the facilities director, Nick Berardi, and he is looking at applying again for the controls for HVAC for Osgood and Deer Hill to make it consistent with the controls that are at the high school, middle school. He has reached out to the company, I'm going to butcher this name, Innovici, that he works with, so that we've begun the grant application, filling in information about what will be the paybacks, updating quotes from the last time we went out to green communities, and he's getting all of the information. So the grant is due by October 20th, and I've sent him the green communities document, and we're working to pull that together. So that will be that'll be nice to have, and something that he's looking to have is have a consistent controls throughout the town for these schools, which will hopefully bring a level of comfort for the students and teachers, as well as consistency with energy reductions and savings.
So just to clarify, this is for Deer Hill and Osgood?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Both of those?
Yes.
Because the middle school and high school already have these controls?
Yes.
From the Green Communities grants?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's well in hand? Do you need any assistance from us to help with the grant?
Not yet. Once we get further along, I might need something, but not at this point.
So why don't we, I mean, this is a month away. We're
Mhm.
talking about October
Yeah.
20th. Why don't we have somebody take the lead to work with you on
Okay.
this so that if you need to contact somebody within our group, you know who to contact?
Sure.
Is there somebody who would like to volunteer to work with Ginny and DPW? And I think Michelle's working on this too, to ensure that our October 20th Green Communities application is solid and any questions we can answer are answered.
This is Martha. I can help if needed.
Awesome. And by the way, Martha is a doer.
Thank you.
We
So
love doers.
I'll connect with you over email, Martha, so that you have my information, and we can set up a call, maybe late next week once Nick has heard back from that contractor and we have a little bit more information. But in the meantime, I'll send you the Green Communities information and outline of the project and the information from last year.
Great, Jenny. Thank you so much.
Great. And Debbie, action item for Martha. Partners. Perfect. Thanks.
And then there two other things, but I have to pull up the agenda
You
because
know
I don't
what?
want to.
I'm going to pull up if it's okay, I'll pull up the meeting minute action items.
Yeah, okay. So the other two things that I was going to report out on was the electric vehicles charging.
Mhm.
And you have Greenworks for later. And then the other one I was going to report out on was the ITC.
Okay, so why don't you just give us an update and then we'll go through the other bullets to see what can be taken off, what's
Okay.
been addressed.
So I reached out to Michelle about the charging fees, and they have started charging fees. They started in September, and they're charging 0.22 cents, and then $5 after 2 hours. And looking at ChargePoint, in September, they have $672 in session fees. And the idea behind charging is that they wanted to recoup the cost of the electricity and any other fees that the town might be occurring. So I asked Michelle and I asked Justin if they've done any press releases to let users know or to let the general public know that they're now charging and the rationale behind. I haven't gotten a response from her. I wanted to ask your committee if in the past, would the committee or a committee member, or I would do it myself, help write a press release to send to Justin, or does he usually write his own press releases?
So Justin usually writes his own, actually.
Okay.
But he would ask us for content. So for example, the quotes on the electric school bus.
Okay.
I sent to him.
So I emailed him and maybe gave the idea of let's do a press release, and that it's important to this committee that there's transparency and that there's rationale behind the charging for the electric vehicles.
So the charging is consistent with what we recommended in July of 2022. So in July of 2022, we made a quarterly presentation to the select board, recommended that in our opinion, we felt it was time to start charging. And I think the 22 cents per kilowatt hour is our number that we had recommended. And I think we also suggested there be a fee for those who are using up the charging station but sitting idle, just because that's commonly done as well. So I think it's been consistent with what we recommended, just took more than a year for it to get implemented, which is fine, because I think there were things that needed to be worked out.
Okay. I
But
like that.
we do think the press
background.
release or some type of marketing would be helpful, because we don't want people to feel like they're getting blindsided.
Mhm. Okay, that's great background to know. And I'll make sure I convey that to Justin if in some bullet points, and share any draft press release with you, Tanya.
Yeah, how about Debbie? Do you want to also be on that copy, Debbie and Tanya?
Yeah, sure.
And Ginny, if you go to our meeting minutes from July, maybe even July or September of last year, you would get our vote and details on what we were recommending, and then attached to those meeting minutes would be the presentation to the select board.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then the ITC, so all of this is still, we're still really waiting on more information and guidance of really how to go about the ITC applying for this 30% tax credit, which is a direct pay. What I have learned is that we must pre-register with the IRS for this in order to receive this direct payment. So I sent that to Michelle, so that she's aware of this and could potentially begin that process of pre-registering with the IRS. It does cover solar, energy storage of 5 kilowatts or more. Roof installs do not count, but Tanya's going to report out in a little bit about the Green Works grant. It does cover, though, for roofs. I'm just trying to pull up my email. Does cover for roofs if you would do a membrane or any kind of solar incorporated into the roof. It does cover that for the roof. I know we had talked about solar in the past for Osgood and Deer Hill, or the committee has talked about that in the past. So all of this information, we're still really waiting to come to light for the ITC and also for the Green Works grant program. We're hoping to have more information on that in October. That's all that I have to report out.
Okay, can we just go through these bullet points that are up here so we know what we can cross off? So the first bullet, update on the status of the Mass CEC battery grant. That can be crossed off, right? Because that's done. That grant has been transferred to the VFW. The only issue is, do we know if the money's been spent? Have we done a procurement to get the battery?
I do not know. You and Michelle were working on that, so I'm not sure about that.
Okay,
I can ask her if the money from Mass CEC has been spent or even received.
Well, we have to do the installation, so I think if you could I think we have to spend it before the end of the year. So if you can check with Michelle on who's doing the procurement of the battery,
Okay.
if she's managing it and what the status is.
Okay.
This one pains me because it's been on for a year and 8 months now, the status of the Stop and Shop rooftop solar contract. I mean, obviously at this point, it's clear the town does not want guaranteed savings from buying power from solar power on the rooftop, but I guess from an action item of either getting this off or continuing to move forward with it, can you just check with Michelle on what the town wants to do with this? We have, there have been other reasons that this project has stalled out as well, but one of the reasons has been a lack of review by the council on the proposed credit contract.
Tanya, I guess maybe I was just sort of memory that's more optimistic. I thought we had signed the piece of paper that got us into the queue. That's not the,
So we did sign the paper that got us into a queue. That was a letter of intent. And then we were provided a draft contract for the credits for the town to have town council review.
and what is that on a critical path, or are we're just still sitting in the queue, right? I mean, we're not, this is not
It's
critical
not,
until.
right. So everything has been put on hold until National Grid is done doing their cluster analysis of the South
Uh-huh.
Shore system and understanding what upgrades are required. And until that's done, we can't put any major solar anywhere in town, just because there's potentially a $500,000 connection fee or other things that they're going to do to make us stop until National Grid can get their arms around where the system is and what needs to be done to the system to account and who's going to pay for it. So it's not a critical path, but I think it's a parallel path. And I keep getting questions from Palmer about whether or not the town has reviewed the contract and where we are as a town with respect to moving forward.
This sort of fits into the category of simply inattention, not necessarily any deliberate intention to not want this.
I totally agree. I mean, I raise it every time we talk to the select board that this is outstanding, and we have trouble trying to get town council time to review contracts. If you recall, we also had trouble with the Mass CEC grant contract. So I don't think it's intentional, but I do think, you know, we can either just keep practicing patience, which we do, and pushing it along.
And who sets the priorities for the town council?
That's basically, generally, I would say it's Chris Senior.
At the direction of the select board, or just, I mean, he pretty much has.
I think Michelle has some pull, you know, if it's just a question of pushing, but you know, there are other ways to get things reviewed, like this grant, and the getting town council to review the electric bus. We got some pressure on that from the schools that helped that get pushed forward. So I think this is just an action item of somebody needs to
Tanya,
put this back on Michelle's radar.
Sorry to interrupt. Is Palmer Capital involved in this at all? Did you say? Is this something that I'd reach out to Palmer Capital to get clarity on?
Well, we don't need clarity on it. They've already sent us this contract multiple times. I mean, this is why I think we've talked about this multiple times. So we received a contract from them last year. There are parallel paths going on with this development, as there is with anything, but one of the things that they're waiting on is, does the town want to buy these credits, and has the town council reviewed the contract?
Okay.
So I get monthly pings from them about this, and then I would in turn provide monthly pings, and then at some point, Ginny, it got on your list to do the monthly pings. So I think we just need to figure out what the status is with the town.
Okay.
So can you take that on?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask Michelle if the town wants to buy the credits and if town council can review that contract.
And I think the first thing you should do is remind her about this.
Yes.
I don't know if she last thought about it.
Yeah.
And what, as I recall, this is worth about $10,000 or $15,000 a month.
A year.
Oh, a year. Oh, really? Okay. So.
But it's guaranteed. And just to put it in perspective, when we talk about our solar panels originally, it's the same size as the solar panels on the landfill, but it's going to generate 1/3 of the savings.
Because we're under another new set of rules.
We're on a new set of rules, and it's a third-party site.
Yeah. All right. So they may be saying $15,000. We have bigger fishes to fry.
Maybe.
I don't know. That's still pretty good.
It's a guaranteed savings, and you get another 500 kilowatts of solar in the town.
Well, there could be another $15,000 lying on the street somewhere that they're focusing on.
This town doesn't stoop down to pick up $15,000.
Oh, gosh.
Help it.
Okay, so I'll reach out to Michelle on that. The National Grid fleet assessment, we do have some traction on that. So Michelle was contacted and CC'd with me from National Grid back in August, just saying that your finalized fleet assessment report and vehicle by vehicle Excel file was sent to you back on March 17th of this year. So they've attached all of this information and they want to they send those next steps about the fleet portal and a survey to complete. So I wasn't sure if Michelle was doing that or if she wanted me to do that. So I will talk to her about just taking that bull by the horn to get this completed for them. I'll talk to her about that too.
I think that Mike Schmidt had been responsible for this fleet assessment. Is there somebody who would like to champion this and work with Ginny to make sure we understand what the materials are, review the materials, what the action items are, just to help usher it along and work with Ginny to interface with the town on this? And this is the fleet assessment National Grid did to assess what the town can do to convert its vehicle fleet to electric.
So again, this is Martha, and I'm happy to help Jenny.
That would be great. Okay, another action item for Martha. Martha, first meeting, you've got 2 action items, and these show up in the minutes, as you can tell. So, yay.
Oh, and I have your email here, Martha, so I'm sending this to you right now.
Great, thank you.
Okay, great.
If you could copy me as well, actually just send it to everybody, Ginny, so everybody has it in their file.
Oh, sure. Okay, I'll do that after the meeting then, because okay. Great.
All right. So electricity credits, one of our issues that we had identified, I don't know when, somewhere a couple of months ago, but most certainly this year, was that the solar panels at the landfill generate credits, which then get allocated to different departments within the town. And if somebody makes a mistake on that allocation, we could lose the credits. So have you been able to determine what the town's doing in this area and confirm that the credits are being fully utilized?
I have not, but I assume, does all of this just fall on Michelle again?
Well, it falls on, I think it's under you, which meant at some point you were going to check with Michelle to find out who you need to talk to see and make sure this is.
Yeah, what I meant is, does this information go to Michelle, like the electricity credits?
I don't know.
Okay, I'll find that out.
I mean, it might be accounting, or it might be. I think that's part of our problem. It was one of our fears when we moved forward with the solar energy array, which was that there was a management function to make sure we're getting the full utilization of the credits across the different accounts.
Okay.
Okay, and then the town's current electricity rate, the town was purchasing from a competitive supplier, and we wanted to know when the contract expired and what the town was going to do about it, and what the price was. And I think part of this was tied to our deliberations on what the recommended price for the charging stations should be. Have we gotten any information on that?
I do not have any information on that, but I'll ask her.
Okay, I think she was looking into that, and yet every time we ask for it, we can never get it. So I think it'd be very useful for us to understand what the town's paying and when the contract expires. If I recall, it's a very favorable rate.
And this is just for the electric vehicles or the electric vehicle charging stations, or is
No,
this?
we know what that is, right? You just reported
Yeah,
out on that.
right.
This is, the town is buying electricity from a competitive supplier.
Okay,
And I think they're buying it under a 2-year contract. And I think the contract is going to be winding down this month, or not this month, this year.
mhm. Okay,
And this is why the town did not participate in the aggregation, community
oh,
aggregation.
right.
So again, I think this is just information that we've been wanting to know and have been asking about. And it helps us to make recommendations on things like the electric vehicles. It also helps us understand why the town's not participating in community aggregation and when the town might want to consider that.
Mhm. Okay, I'll get that
Okay,
information.
and then I think the last 2 bullets you reported out on,
I did.
green communities funding and the fee structure that's been implemented for the charging stations.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing. Thank you, Ginny. Anything else that we should know about or that you'd like to report out on?
No, not at this time.
Perfect. So thank you for all of your help and helping to usher this through and being our liaison with the town. It, as you know, helps get things done, which is good. All right. So I need to, Barbara Russell, did you share your screen with us?
Probably inadvertently. I apologize.
That's all right.
God knows what I shared. I'm sorry.
No problem. I thought it was mine and was starting to panic. Because I was like, oh my God, what do I have open that I'm sharing right now? Okay, so the next thing on our agenda.
Greenhouse gas.
What is it?
It's the greenhouse gas.
Okay, greenhouse gas. The Greenhouse Gas Inventory Subcommittee. I understand you've been meeting and doing great work.
We kind of went out and got this stuff and I compiled it together. So we got the new data. The unfortunate thing is it's not going down. It hasn't got, so we got the data from 2017 that was in the report that MAPC gave us. We updated it with the 2021, mostly 2021 data with some mixed in newer data. But yeah, it's about 80,000 metric tons, up from 77 in 2017. Most of that, it's about 3% growth. Most of that's been due to increased amount of cars. There's a lot of gasoline cars, but that's led to about 8% growth there and about 5% in residential energy. So yeah, it's probably just Newton, more homes, more people, more cars, more houses. So
Okay.
That's it. So now we've gotten on the scale, stepped off the scale. Now we just got to figure out the plan to lose some weight.
Which we can all relate to.
Yeah.
So I guess, do we have a comparison that you can share next meeting that shows by category what the MAPC 2017 had indicated and then what was calculated for 2022? What's the year that you're basing it?
I did send out the update. It's mostly 2021. Some of it's mostly 2021 data, unless some like
Okay.
the trash. Debbie got that. I think that's more, that's like up to date. But so I did highlight it. It's really tough because there's so many data points. It's like, what do you want to compare? I did go through. So the one I just sent out before the meeting, I highlighted anything in red means it's gone up. If you want to go back to the 2017 one and take a look, kind of what it was, you can see that. But I have highlighted it. If it's red, it's going up. If it's purple, that means it's decreasing. The only thing that's really been decreasing has been town. A lot of the municipal numbers have seemed to have gone down. Obviously they've rolled out some electric cars. I don't know if they seem to have done other things that had caused their usage to go down. So
that's actually important for the green communities, because the green communities funding has been tied to goals for energy efficiency and a code word for carbon emissions as well. So it might be useful for us to have that information as part of the grant writing proposal. Is there something we'd want to include in the minutes just to create a record of some of the key takeaways from the analysis?
I think the main one is that our overall carbon footprint has gone up 3% since 2017. And I can figure out, and we can I can send over maybe some cherry picked kind of insights if I take a look at more if you from a municipal side. Let me share my screen. I don't know if you guys if we want to take the time.
Yeah, I mean, this subcommittee has done a great job.
I mean,
Yeah, kudos for Josh for, I think this is your idea a couple of meetings ago. And it's actually pretty instructive going through this spreadsheet and just sort of seeing what sort of data and sort of tapping into some of the data sources and to see what's out there. It's
yeah,
pretty extensive.
Yeah, pretty interesting things that they looked at. But thanks, Chris, and thanks for your help, and thanks, Ginny and Steve and Debbie. Yeah, some of these that are kind of grouped together between municipal, like overall. So then you have to kind of go back to the inputs, and so it does take some. I'd have to tell you, so residential, commercial, industrial. Yeah, I can put something together though, a more of a summary comparison of 2017 to now. These are all the inputs, but
yeah, or even just some charts showing
So
like
Josh,
yeah, I think it's all emissions.
so the MAPC report that the PowerPoint that they did, and they broke everything down into like pie charts and stuff. And that's where the little man is that I wanted to, that we
Oh,
talked
that's where you
about.
got that. Actually, you know what? Let me see if it's
That's right in there. And,
Yeah.
they showed in 2017 that the average Cohasset resident generated 9.1, tons of carbon dioxide, which, now we could look at this and see where we are today. And, obviously we've got population adjustments we have to make. So it may not be as bad as we think. But anyway, I was thinking that really shows it. And then I had talked to you, and I think I sent something to Tanya too about an idea for a educational campaign about trying to take that mythical 9.1 Cohasset resident and see if we could start cutting away at it, at him. And there's the transportation sector, the residential sector, and do a whole educational thing. Josh and I even he talked about putting a big cutout right next to town hall. And I was talking to Pat Gooding about this today, and she said, well, because I had thought about cutting the guy down to size as we, tried to get people to, lower their emissions. But she said, well, take the guy, paint him red, and then as things change, just take little parts and turn him green, so
Right.
we could make it a real fun educational campaign based on this to see what we could do and kind of give some sort of visual, exciting, not exciting, but kind of, fun thing that the town could all focus on. Maybe we put it at the library. I don't know.
Yeah.
But if could you find that, because that's really
What,
I
fine,
like
which part though? The,
the PowerPoint,
oh, the PowerPoint.
MAPC's PowerPoint.
Yeah, I'd have to, it's gonna take me a while. I don't want to try to do that on live.
You know, one of the other things, if I just might add, I started looking at your data when I got it. I think what is, and again, I'm the rookie, but I imagine that the intent, to Deb's point, is to share this data, which obviously it's disturbing. But when you look at stationary energy in residential buildings, if you compare it, and I guess we can, I looked at the US average home was 5.139 metric tons of CO2 last year. And if I just kind of calculated how many people are in the average home, and knowing how many people are in Cohasset, I didn't know how many homes there were, but on the back of an envelope, it appeared that there was 13.5 metric tons per home here versus the national average of 5.13. And it's not a shame index, but I've shared this with Deb before. I think it's a powerful metric, especially a lot of people like me and us are buying EVs, and that feels good. But if you look at your own carbon footprint in your home, and it's so much above the national average, that's daunting, and I think it could be powerful, to Deb's point.
Yeah, definitely.
So to get those metrics, I think would be, I mean, to see those in the abstract without context, I don't think it has the same clout as really bringing it to the fore and reminding people of what it is per household, per person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Barbara, I'd be interested in knowing how much that carbon footprint for a household goes down if somebody subscribes to a 100% renewable option in the Cohasset electricity program.
Right, if you can segment that out, which I'm really interested in.
Yeah,
definitely. I think it needs some fine tuning. I think the community aggregation is definitely something that will give us a boost here, or drop it down.
So can I would like to, float the idea of another subcommittee, but, sort of piggybacking on this one about, bringing the data to the community, coming up with some sort of a educational plan to get this information out to the community and incentivize people to, find incentives to have people change their ways, actually. And I guess it would be things like, I mean, I'm not talking about any financial things, but just educational things about what's available, pointing out, like Barbara said, some of the where we're, really weak and what people can do to change it. And then we have this as a base, and we can use it as a benchmark to see where we're going. And just kind of take the next year while, and educate people to see if in a year from now, if there's new figures, whether we've made some progress. We should be able to get EVs. We should be able to get heat pumps and things like that to see whether we're making any headway on this. So anyway, I'm proposing a committee, a subcommittee to take this data, make it public, and try to advocate for change.
I volunteer.
I volunteer.
I volunteer.
Yeah, I'm gonna have everyone volunteering. I think it's a great idea. I mean, I definitely participate in this one, Tanya. I mean, I think the education. So when you get the flyer about the energy communities, if you also see the numbers and you see what it would do to make the renewable election, that's really big. I think you definitely have to tell the story. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I like how Barbara was talking about breaking it down individually by resident, right? And then people have they have their number, right? You got your number, you know, and then you can figure out, so if you want ways to see how you can lower your A1C, whatever, you know, basically CO2, another number. But yeah, just, you know, talk about community ag and all these different things that could drop it. You could, you know, go from your current number to by 20%, you could drop your number.
And I
Um,
think it might be some town building thing too, where, you know, we might build in some sort of you know, like what can we do as a town? I don't know. You know, that could be something where we, you know, have this guy at the library and that we can start painting him green as we lower things, or you know, I don't know. I'm just thinking that it could be, you know, sort of a town awareness project.
Steve,
Yeah.
your
Oh,
hand.
I think to the extent that the town's taking, you know, doing its own measures, it can promote that. And that it's trying to actually reduce the overall town's footprint by what it's doing itself. And then, you know, maybe even promoting some of the consumption reduction, you know, incentives that you can get. Obviously, everybody knows about the utility on this call, the incentive programs for heat pumps or what have you, but maybe not everybody in town really knows it. You know, push it out to the contractors, make sure they know they can be making a difference. The local ones that are in town here, they can be making a difference by installing heat pumps instead of traditional HVAC. I think my guess is that actually a lot of the tonnage in this town versus the rest of the country is probably because you know, we got a lot of gas fired boilers. I have one in my house, you know.
We have a lot of large houses.
Yeah, and a lot of large houses. They're using a lot of energy. Very
You
good
know,
point.
And to that point, Dor, when Acton wrote their climate action plan, I guess it came out earlier this year. They had a series. I got to meet with them down on the Cape when they had their big climate conference this year. They had about 20 workshops that engaged the community to explain to them why they wanted to go green and how imperative it was, and they were highly effective. And the entire town felt that they wanted to collaborate on writing their cap. It's considered one of the best in the state. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. And that's exactly what they did. They got people educated as to where they are, where they should be, how do they compete with the rest of the communities throughout Massachusetts, and it was highly effective.
Barbara, what town was that?
Acton.
Acton.
You should read their cap. It's extraordinary.
Read their what, Barbara?
Their climate action plan.
Yeah, well, maybe we could to distribute that to the group. I'd love to read that. Or we just Google it. Acton's.
Yeah, I can send it to you. I'll send you the PDF
Oh,
file.
great. Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Me too, please, Barbara.
Yeah, Barbara, if you could distribute it to everybody, that'd be great.
I'm a Democrat in terms of distribution, small d.
Great. Speaking of climate action plans, so I think I'll put a placeholder on climate action plans in Hingham, because we've talked about having Hingham come speak. But before we move on to that, I guess, what do we want to do here? And I think I just want us to be careful that we're not tasked with advocacy, but that doesn't mean we can't take action and we can't market and publish information that we've discovered. So for example, we've just done a tremendous job in updating our greenhouse gas inventory. We should put that into the presentation for the select board, which we need to get on their agenda. Let them know what we've done. Let them know how the town is doing as a whole, as well as what the municipality is doing, to show the decrease in carbon emissions that the town has been realizing thanks to the investments that have been made. And I think a lot of the messaging can be done in that venue, and then that can be turned into something for Justin to put out. We can work with the anchor to report the information, to share what we now know, especially if we have some nice charts, even some quotes. So I think there's things that we can definitely do, just through our normal operations. But let's take a vote right now about an exploratory committee that can pull together some of that information, a good way that can start being published and put out into the conversation. And that committee could also come up with a very specific select board to approve on what we want to do. Because our authority comes from the select board. And as you know, we've been very careful about making sure anything we're doing has a blessing of the select board before we go down that path. So I would, if people are in agreement, I would entertain a motion to put together a committee to pull together information that takes advantage of this amazing work that's been done by this greenhouse gas inventory committee and put it in formats that can be easily disseminated and used for informational reasons, and to come up with an official ask about what we would like this committee to consider going to the select board for approval on. Does that make sense?
Yes, makes sense. And I'll make that motion, assuming Deb will sort of streamline the motion. Or
I second
All
the
right.
motion.
Who's the second?
I second it. Yep.
Okay, that's Josh. All right, any discussion?
I guess
Okay.
just we asking the. Okay, forget it. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was wondering, what would be some things that we would ask the select board to do? Is that that's what we're trying to figure out?
Yeah, that's what this committee's figuring out. What is it we want to ask for approval to do?
specifically, we know generally we want to get the word out and
Right.
encourage conservation, et cetera, and provide this interesting data.
We
But
need this
since we don't have the authority to do anything, we need to implement anything, we need to ask.
That's interesting. We have to ask to get the word out.
Wait, can I ask another clarifying question? So, Tanya, did I read in the minutes from the last meeting that you were questioning the authority of this committee to engage in creation of a climate action plan?
We weren't questioning the authority of this committee because we can only do what's in our charter and what the select board gives us approval to pursue. And we have not gone to, we were waiting to get the carbon inventory before and understand the carbon inventory and what would be included in a climate action plan, as well as whether any of the grants had been granted to fund a consultant for the climate action plan before we went to the select board to get their blessing on pursuing a climate action plan.
Right, and so the MVP2 was, I guess that the funding didn't come through. Is it a funding issue or is it a jurisdictional issue as to who does what?
We wanted to wait until we got the funding to decide how to proceed.
And now the funding is linked to the MVP2 completion, is that correct?
Yeah, MVP2 we did receive funding for. It's a year-long public engagement process that is being led by the planning department. And at the end of the year, where we're talking about climate resiliency, it may be that the public decides they want to create a climate action plan, or it may be that they decide they want to do something else, totally different, something related to the harbor or something completely different. So that's why I had hoped that we would receive funding from a more known, a source that would provide a more known outcome.
And more expediently.
Yes. It's a great
Right,
process. It'll be a great grant process that the community can engage in. And will be opportunities, I'm sure, to talk about a climate action plan. It just may not be the end result. We don't know.
Yeah,
Or maybe.
as you know, in towns like Hingham or Acton or others, it's not necessarily coming from a single person who's championing it or from a single committee in the town. Like in Hingham, there was a Hingham Net Zero voluntary group of citizens. There was South Shore 360. There were, just a number of organizations that were coming together to really push it and get the buy-in and the public support. And right now, the only active committee in Cohasset that's focused on these issues is our committee. And our committee is not against moving forward with the climate action plan. I think what we recognize is it's a very long process that requires a lot of stakeholder participation and facilitation and a lot of effort that frankly needs external help on. And if we had the funding, it'd be one thing to go to and understood our inventory, we'd be able to then go to the select board to get, their blessing and approval to move forward with a more concerted effort if this committee felt like we were up to the task.
No. And would we conduct a survey with residents of Cohasset? Is that another option to determine?
I can give you a list of 110 items or more that would need to be done as part of the process, because my company was hired by Hingham to do their cap. So I'm very familiar with what goes into it. And Ginny was also involved in that process, as well as Dedham. So yes, surveys are important. Town meetings are important. Ongoing meetings are important. In Hingham, they created a completely separate climate action planning committee to spearhead it, which was separate from their version of the alternative energy committee, but it had members from every committee in town, including their AEC equivalent. So it is a very big process. And I think this committee wanted to start finding out more information about what was included and entailed to determine what role we can and should play, and to also test the waters with the select board to see what their appetite was for pursuing it. Because if the select board doesn't want to do it, then it has to come from the bottom, right? It's either top down or the bottom up. And we wanted, I think, to first pursue whether or not we could get the leadership of the town in a positive place to pursue a climate action plan.
Did Hingham get grant money or did they pay with tax money?
They got funding from HMLP, their municipal light plant, who got the funding by selling renewable energy credits. And it's, you're talking about, all in $100,000 to $200,000 of external support. Would you agree, Ginny?
Yeah, yes.
At least.
We know that story. Yep. Yeah, would it be something that, it's something I think that's exactly what Tanya is saying, that should be a conversation of members of this committee with the town management of that, we don't have any funding sources right now, and then to see if they would fund it or if they want to be creative. And I can offer up some ideas for how they could be creative in funding this project through asking the Representative Moschino or other sources to fund that. But as Tanya and I said, we just went through this whole long public engagement process for a climate action plan. It took a year, and now there's a climate action committee, implementation committee in Hingham. It doesn't have to be done that way. A lot of communities are now going a little bit more clear cut. And we, like Tanya said, we have a lot of that information. It just depends on the route and the end result of what the town and the committee wants to see.
And the way I look at it is kind of two tracks, right? And they can meet, but one is we've got this sort of baseline data from MAPC, and it shows that if I remember, only 4 or 5% of the greenhouse gas emissions were actually on the municipal side. Isn't that right? It's very little, very little. And so, so really, a climate action plan is obviously a lot broader than just, dealing with the greenhouse gas side of things. But I think, you know, doing this while we're moving on the other track makes sense. I hate to see us just not, you know, not use this information and push forward while, you know, the climate action plan is being put into place. So I feel like you know, I feel like the educational part makes a lot of sense for right now.
Agreed.
Okay, so back to our thought. So we have a motion in a second, and we've had discussion about a committee that would put their heads together to think about how do we use this great information that our greenhouse gas subcommittee has pulled together. How can we put it into good little sound bites or digestible messages that can be shared with the town, with the select board, with Justin, with others? And how do we then, what do we do with respect to the select board in asking for their blessing on some type of action item tied to the greenhouse gas inventory / climate action plan / what we want to do next? Keeping in mind that baby steps might be the prudent way to go. So effectively, we have a motion in a second. We've had discussion. Is there any more discussion? So then are we ready for a roll call vote where you say your name and your vote? Okay, I would entertain votes from the members of this committee.
Prasad Leeson, aye.
Debbie Cook, aye.
Steve Winter, aye.
Josh Dutton, aye.
Martha Jimmy, I.
Barbara Russell, I.
And Tanya Bodell, aye. Okay, so this passes unanimously. So this is good. So great work again, Greenhouse Gas Inventory Committee. I can't believe the haste with which this was done and the $25,000 that you saved us in grants and consultants by doing it ourselves.
That
I
comes
hope
on
it
our
was
part.
somewhat
Can we add that to our tally?
Yeah, that goes to our tally, which is quickly
Right.
approaching $2 million. So
Excellent.
Barbara, we are the only committee in town that actually makes revenue.
I'm impressed.
Okay, I also want to just quickly, because we were talking about the results of 9.1, I'm going to quickly show you a page from the Hingham Climate Action Plan. And it's just to recognize that although we might be higher than the rest of the country, if we look at some of our peers, and for Hingham, these were communities that were considered similar enough, and you could look at what their per capita intensity was. You know, we're on par with Newton, and Hingham is at around 13 tons of CO2 per person. And the reason they're there, along with the others who are in that 13 range, is half of the Hingham residents use oil for heat. Whereas I don't think very many people in Cohasset use oil. So I think
This
we
includes
can,
commercial too, though, right?
they have more commercial. And again, some of the commercial is on oil, some of them are on gas. They have, they don't really have industry. And this doesn't count the cows from Hornstra. So I just wanted to share that with you, the as a precursor, as a continuation of the discussion. So Hingham has just completed their climate action plan process, and we have as an action item, in fact, it was supposed to be for this month, but we can do it for next month, to invite Brad Moyer, who was the lead of the climate action plan committee, to come and share with us what that process entails, what they went through, how long it took, what the cost was, what were the easy parts, what were the hard parts. And I think it would educate this committee to help inform us as we move forward with respect to contemplating a climate action plan and
That'd be
what that looks
terrific.
like for the town of Cohasset.
Tanya, before we talk about that, I don't know how we're constituting that committee. Who's going to be on it and how we're going to do that.
Oh, that's a good point. So now that we have that committee, didn't we already have our volunteers?
I
I
think we
think we
had a
have
group of
more than
volunteers.
enough volunteers.
Yeah.
Is there any way that we could have, I don't know, is there any way we could structure it so more people could be involved? Whether we set up two committees, or I don't know. It just feels like, you know, in a lot of people seem to want to have input.
Well, everybody's going to have input. It's a question of who, because that committee is going to report back to this committee,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I guess it's a question of, we generally like to keep the members of this committee on subcommittees to 3 or less. And so did we have 4 members of this committee who wanted to be involved?
I was the first one who volunteered.
And it was,
Yeah, I know, you got,
me.
I can step out, like, I can step out for this. I think,
Well, that's not fair.
You did all the work on the GHG stuff. so-
well, I mean, it's okay, but I mean, we're still going in the right direction. I don't know, I think, yeah, it's fine.
I mean, that it doesn't, not being on the committee doesn't preclude Josh from putting together
Yeah,
some
no, no worry about it, yeah.
graphs and sound bites and sharing them with the committee. I mean,
The one
the
thing we
problem is,
still gotta do
if
on
we
this
have
is,
a quorum, if we have 4 people, it's an alternative energy committee meeting. And we have to post it with a 2 business day notice lead time. And then the question is, why isn't everybody on the meeting?
So is it possible to post a subcommittee meeting and let us, you know, and let whoever wants to participate be on the subcommittee? And I mean, I will be glad to make sure it's posted if more people want
The
to.
problem is if we have 4 members of the alternative energy committee participating, it is an alternative energy committee meeting and the AEC has to post it.
Okay.
So I like the idea, you know, it doesn't make sense for there to be 2 groups which are focused on 2 different things, or do we start with a 3-person, and I think Doran, who doesn't count towards the quorum, can participate as well, and he volunteered, I think, before he jumped off. So you'd have 4 people, that does not include 4 members of the committee. And then if we want to reconstitute, so why don't we start with that committee, have them put their heads together, think through things, come up with whatever they want to come up with to come to back to this committee next month for some action items.
Yeah,
And then if we
could-
want to create new groups, we can create new groups, or if we want to do it as a whole committee, we talk about what that looks like.
Tanya, could I make a point here? I think we only would have run afoul of the open meeting laws if 4 or more people were to participate in a meeting. So if we had a 4-person committee, but we never had all 4 people meet at the same time, we would have no problem. So like if Debbie wanted to divide up tasks and a couple of us work on one thing and a couple of other people work on something else and so forth. So whenever there was a meeting, it'd only be of 2 or 3 people, never 4 people. Then there would be no problem with the open meeting law.
That is correct.
We can collaborate by email. That's not a meeting, right?
As long as there are not 4 people on the email and there's no deliberation. If there's 4 members of this committee on an email where there's discussion and deliberation, you're in violation of the open meeting laws because we did not post a meeting. Oh, speaking of which, everybody who's a new member, if you haven't, you'll need to take a ethics training course and show your certificate, submit your certificate to the clerk. And it's a 2-year, every 2 years you have to take it. and it goes through open meeting laws and other ethical issues.
I'm all set.
Great.
Hey, Tanya, I need to sign off.
Yeah, I know. We need to close up because we are,
okay.
this is the problem with skipping a meeting in August.
Yes, I'll talk to
Okay.
everybody later. Bye.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Anything else? Let's see, what else is on our list?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've got an important item here at the last minute, but I want to discuss.
I still don't know who's on the basic committee, but so Debbie, Steve, Barbara, and
Doran.
and Doran. Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so what's next on our agenda? We've got, sorry, I don't know where this goes when I,
It's
Electric
updated,
school
right?
bus,
Yeah.
yeah.
okay,
Deb-
so I think the next couple ones are just quick updates, including the data, which is some good news. On the electric school bus, that has been approved. The contract has been signed. Enel has bent over backwards to make it happen. The bus is supposed to be delivered with a charging station like above level 3 Mama Jamma juice box provided by Enel at the current parking spot for the buses. We expect that the bus will be running by January. In the meantime, the schools have moved forward with leasing a 9th school bus for 6 months. And depending on the timing, but we expect the electric school bus to take that place in January. So that's a hooray, because that's moving forward. And we will, as part of that, work with the schools to try to do some type of big green ribbon cutting with rides in the electric bus by the people who help make it happen, including this committee. And if more than 4 of us are on the bus, we're going to have to post a meeting just to not run afoul of open meeting laws, which is fine. We just have to make everything transparent. So that's good news. Very exciting. It was a lot of work, and I thank all of you for the support, and Debbie and Steve coming to that meeting, which was so crucial, was key. Mass CEC batteries for the VFW, we already talked about that, and we don't know what the status is, but that's on Ginny's list, so she's going to find out. Green School Works, we spoke to Select. They really didn't have much information, but there is grant funding to replace school roofs to make them solar ready. And one of our problems since 2010 has been that school roofs were too old to put solar panels on them. And so with this Green School Works grants and the status of the roofs, we should be able to apply for and be eligible for and receive grants to replace the school roofs. And I think this might be one of our priorities for 2024. And then once that's in place, we can move forward with putting solar on the school roofs to be able to realize savings as well as carbon emission decreases, because the school roofs are the best roofs we have for this. And then the other solar energy projects, we're going to find out the status of the Stop and Shop project. Marketing and social media, is there anything to report on that? We sort of talked about some of that.
No, I think this whole net zero is good subject that we could do something with. I guess we just have to maybe figure out what that is, and we're going to ask the committee.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly where this task comes, and we've already gotten permission to move forward with our marketing and social media. So that's clearly within our existing charter and permissions. Data report, solar energy array and charging stations.
Do you want me to show it or?
Show it, baby.
All right.
This is crazy good.
I just had it. Where the hell is it? Oh, sorry. I literally just had it open.
Oh, it's like my agenda keeps disappearing.
Oh my God. I must have closed it by mistake. One sec.
No problem.
Yeah. So anyway, we crossed over $400,000 that the array has created for the town.
$400,000 in savings?
$400,000 in savings.
Get out. In how many years? Like 5.5 years? 6 years.
Yeah.
17.
Here it is. Sorry about that. There we go. One sec. Share the screen. Okay. All right. Get this stuff out of here. Sorry. Yeah. So obviously the rate's still down at 23 cents. So yeah, we only made $7,000 last month in August, but 77,000 for the year for a total of 400,000. Big ones.
Wow.
Anything else?
I just want to say we might save, because of our solar energy array on the landfill, we might save $100,000 this year from that solar energy array alone. That's great. Last thing, do we have an update on the vehicles, electric vehicle charging?
Yeah, Ginny gave a little one. Did you want more? And basically the one thing that, I mean, everything's been pretty average. The one thing I noticed though is that the time on the charger has gone down. I think when last meeting it was like 6.5. Now it's down to like 5:45. So maybe some of the that charges people a little bit, watching a little bit closely now that they're getting charged. I think
So remember, one of the things we wanted to do with the 22 cents was test out the elasticity of demand. That if you put a price on it, how much does the charging go down? Steve, are you still charging at the town's charging stations?
I charged once since I started charging. Haven't been back. I think it's now cheaper for me to charge at home.
Oh, well, your one-man test of elasticity of demand.
That's right.
So, infinitely elastic.
And August is pretty, done down a little bit, but unique drivers pretty similar, but there has been a little trend downward.
But I think the charging started in September, right?
Right.
Oh, it just started in September. Okay.
So we'll know next month. We'll know by the end of the year with 3 months of information in comparison to last year, which hopefully we can get on what the impact of the charging has been. Okay, well, that'll be interesting. All right, great. Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Josh? All right. Matters not reasonably known in advance?
Yeah, I got a biggie.
Ooh.
So
it's 10:07. Let me just point that out to you.
Yes, I'll be quick.
Okay.
There are two important developments related to community choice segregation, and they don't affect us immediately, but they will affect us when it comes time for renewal. Good Energy and Peregrine Energy and Colonial Power all had meetings with all their towns in Massachusetts about this. The DPU is proposing new rules. Actually, they call them guidelines, but they're essentially rules that will greatly affect it. For instance, they're only going to allow two levels, two options in a town. One of those having to be the base utility option, rather than we have three, of course, with 100% being the premium level. And they're going to restrict the timing at which the brokers can go out for bids, which will undercut a lot of their competitive advantage. And there's a whole bunch of other things. Anyways, everyone involved in community choice segregation is upset about this. So there's going to be a major campaign to address these issues. Comments are due at the DPU by October 6th. anyways, and that's one thing. The second thing is that now there is a bill before the State House that revises the 1997 Utility Restructuring Act that established CCAs, and this is the first revision of that state law since 1997. It's a big thing. It's a major thing, and the brokers are all behind it. And they think there's a lot of good things in the bill, a lot of bad things in the DPU's proposal, and they would like to circulate a letter and do other things to express their and presumably our point of view on this. So they had a meeting about it, and they're going to be distributing. I think they've already distributed some talking points to our town officials and to our legislators, and hopefully they'll sign on to a petition. So anyways, the point is that neither Michelle nor Chris Sr. were on the call on this, although I'm sure they got all the information. I would like to talk to them, maybe with Debbie, to discuss this with them, because it obviously hasn't risen high enough in their priority list to participate in the discussions thus far. But I think it'd be really good if we could join in with all the other towns and question what the DPU is doing, and also express appropriate comments about the new bill that's before the State House. The State House bill is going to have a hearing in the House on October the 12th. So I'm going to go there and comment one way or the other, either for the town or for an advocacy organization. So anyway, I'm bringing this up because it needs some attention, and it's needs some attention fairly soon. So I'm hoping that I could bring this forward to Chris and Michelle and maybe the select board. Is there a select board meeting before the 6th or not?
I don't know, but we'd have to get on the agenda, which we should get on anyway, because we need to do a quarterly update, and we can mention this to them. I would say, first of all, we never disbanded our community aggregation subcommittee. So our community aggregation subcommittee can keep apprised of what's going on and can report to the town, meaning Michelle and Chris, about these changes. So that's still an opportunity for the community aggregation subcommittee to move forward and talk to Michelle and Chris about what's happening. As a private citizen, you're allowed to do anything, right? Just not, if it's not tasked by the AEC, you can't say you're talking on behalf of the AEC.
Yes, right, absolutely.
Individual citizen. And so then I guess the next question I'd have is, what else would you want from an action item for this committee to consider?
I'm not sure I need anything except, like I say, I'd like Debbie, would you be willing to join me? I'd like to talk to Chris and Michelle about this.
I had told you, I definitely want to be a part of it. And I know that, that actually they were asking for the towns to write a letter to the DPU and to the legislature about, about the bill, supporting this bill. So they want some action from the town and the select.
Right. So Good Energy has sent us some talking points and so forth. I haven't had a chance to review them yet. Did you, Debbie? They just sent out
I didn't get them. I couldn't make that, phone. No, I didn't get them.
I thought you were on the mailing list though, but okay, I'll forward it to you.
Yeah, no, I know, because I did get the invitation to the phone call, but.
Steve, I'd love to see that as well, if you could forward it.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think, I don't even know if we need a committee vote on this, but I'd be happy to have the community aggregation subcommittee distribute the information from Good Energy to the town, to our sustainability coordinator consultant, and to the members of this committee, so that we're aware. And then if that committee wants to go talk to Chris and Michelle about what the ask is from Good Energy about the community aggregation program and see what their thoughts are on how to proceed. I think
Okay,
that-
I propose tomorrow morning calling Chris and Michelle and trying to get an appointment with them for Debbie and I to come and have a four-person discussion.
about what's been sent to you by Good Energy regarding policy related to community
Right.
aggregation.
Both the bill and the DPU new rules.
And Steve,
Okay.
I found the best way to do that is also CC the administrative assistant in their office, because she does all the scheduling for
Oh,
for
okay.
meetings. Yeah, and then
Sure.
she'll get back to you quick.
Okay, so Steve,
Right.
you made that motion. I second the motion.
The motion is to try to get a meeting with Michelle and Chris.
The motion is to go to allow the community aggregation subcommittee to go distribute the information that they've received from Good Energy related to potential changes to the rules and meet with members of the town.
Okay.
to
Point of order,
discuss what the next
need
step should
as a point of order, do we need a motion to do that, or do we have the authority to do it with just,
Well, I think, let's just keep it clean so it doesn't look like the subcommittee is going rogue
okay,
on the committee, right? I want it to be clear that this committee has heard what you're suggesting, hasn't had time to talk about it, and it wasn't on the agenda. So,
right.
given all of that, I hope you found out about this within the last 48 hours.
Well, no. I did send you an email
That we're
about
not
it.
really allowed to discuss it. So the best I can do is make a motion, second it, and then have a vote.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a motion, a second, any discussion? All right, so if you're in favor of having our community aggregation subcommittee members, Debbie and Steve, go talk to the town about what's happening in the policy arena related to community aggregation and distribute information, which we don't need to vote on because you can just do that. But to go meet with the town to inform them and figure out what the next steps are. I think
But by the
motion and a
town,
second.
there's two things. There's the select board, and then there's also Michelle and Chris.
Well,
So-
this committee would talk to the select board. I mean, when
Okay.
I say this committee, it would be under the guise of this committee.
The AEC, the total AEC. Okay.
Yes. But
And Debbie
you
and I
could be
could
the
be there.
speaker.
Yeah,
But you
we'd
could be
come
the
there. and
speaker.
Right. Okay. So we just need, the motion is applied, just is for talking to Chris and Michelle.
Correct.
Okay.
Josh on that.
Oh.
So I'll call the question.
Okay, so I think
that-
we have a
Is
motion
that a
and a
Robert's
second.
Rules of Order thing to call the question?
Yeah, we have a motion and a second, and so Josh Staunton just said aye.
Steve Winter, aye.
Aye.
Debbie Cook,
Martha,
aye.
you have to say your name.
Martha again, Jimmy, aye.
Barbara Russell, I.
Tanya Bodell, aye.
And I apologize for not getting this on the official agenda. I could have. Sorry.
Well, the problem is we put this under matters not reasonably known in advance. And I'm doing the vote so that we can close out this meeting and actually still have action instead of calling another special meeting to talk about it. So I think you've got what you need and this committee is comfortable doing it and it's unanimous vote. So go to it. And is there anything else? Matters not reasonably known in advance. And in advance means in advance of 48 hours that were required for the post, the 2 business days that were required for the posting of the agenda. All right, if there's nothing more, I would then entertain, well, I want to first of all, welcome everybody again to our committee. Hopefully you've had a fun first time. Usually they don't last this long, but because we did not meet in August, I think we're catching up. And given all of that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Second. Oh, it doesn't.
All
doesn't
right.
require a second?
And we don't have to do a roll call vote for this. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay.
Opposed? All right, perfect.